So good evening, sirs. How's your day? Sorry, guys. So I just need to take water. Yeah. So our today's topic, we're going to continue from where we stopped last class. So today is going to be on what you call index and view in the database for management. And before that, let me quickly open our database to see where we stopped the last class. So mysql database console, and I click on what OK. So the password, no. So show what database. As is to see our database available. Okay. So I want to open my database, which is ShopRiteDB. ShopRiteDB. That's the database name. So let me now check the table available. That's going to be show tables. Show tables. Okay. So that's it. So two tables we are working with is let's see the record on those tables. Describe. Oh no, select all record from item details. Okay, item detail table. Okay. So these are the record we have in this table here now. Okay, so these are the record we have here. And also, I want to see record from the other tables. That is the supplier table. So these are supplier. And also, I want to check the record from the category tables too. Category. Okay, that is it. So, good. So I want to add one more record to the supplier table this time around. But like I said, we only need to add the record to the table. So my adding record supplier table is going to start with, but let me check the structure for that supplier table first. Describe supplier. Okay, so I can now add the record now. This is going to start with insert into the table name is supplier. I will now say values. Okay, values, value. Okay, so I can specify the first record. The last supplier record is 5, I say 6, comma, followed by supplier first name. That's going to be what? Funmi. I say Funmilayo or Funmilayo. And the other name is, the last name is going to be uh, Ransom Kuti. Okay, so after that, the next data is going to be address. Okay, now I'm going to be what? 1 Kalakuta Street. Okay, Kalakuta Street, Ikeja. Okay, Ikeja. So after that, that'll be email address. That's going to be what? Oh my God. Email address. Now I can continue here. It's going to be what? Funmi at yahoo.com. Okay, comma again. That phone number 0902 435. Okay, and one more information. That's going to be gender, and that's female. Female. Okay, so I close the bracket and add the semicolon. Good. Record is added. So I can display all the supplier record again. You can see the new record. That is it now. So we are seeing how you can add the record to our existing table here now. That is it. So the topic we want to discuss today now is still going on on retrieving the record and manipulating the record. But the topic is very important because that's exactly what that make a database to be a database. Now, today's topic is going to be what you call index and view. What is an index? What is view? And when we talk about the index is one of the objects in a database. And index is very important in a database. One of the reasons why the index is very important in database is that you know that once you create a database table, majority of the operation everybody perform on the database is to fetch record from database. If you look at the customer in the bank today now, if customer is going to open account in a bank, the hello, 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 are you saying something? So if a customer is going to open account in a bank, customer open account once, and when the customer submit his information, the bank official will only add the record to the database once. That means they insert the customer record in the database once. But after that again, what they perform mostly on the customer record is to retrieve the customer record all the time. Retrieving of the record, retrieving of the record, retrieving of the record. And retrieving of this record has become something much more challenging in database. And that's why there's a need for index, because sometimes when you are retrieving record from database, the record you want to retrieve might take a lot of time before system display it. In order to improve the processing of retrieving record from database when we are using a select statement, that's why we need to understand what the index is. Because index allow user to speed up the data access. Index allow table to instead allow the data access on table to be very fast, to be speed up. And that's why they say that mysql allow user to create an index on the table in order to speed up the data access. When you have a table which you retrieve the record from regularly, that table deserve to be indexed. But if you have a table that you don't retrieve record on it frequently, there's no need for you to apply the index to that table. And another thing that when you are creating an index on the table, Index should be created on the column that are most frequently used for accessing the data from the table. Any column that used to retrieve record from the table, that will be the column to be indexed. Especially the column that are going to be added to the one to the select where or select having. Any column you use with the where or the column you use with the what with the having, that should be the column that must be what indexed. And also, index is a database subject that used to improve for the efficiency of the database in my SQL server. If you look at the table we are working on, we call it what? A supplier table. You know that sometimes we might want to fetch supplier record. And if you are fetching supplier record, what is the column you might need to see a different type of the supplier. Sometimes you might want to check for supplier by their supplier number, and that's what most of the customers, even though in the bank, they used to make use of what you call what? A customer account number to fetch the customer account. And sometimes if customer did not have an account one, if customer account number maybe is not remember or their customer forget his account number, they can now ask the customer that oga, okay sir, what is your what? Your name, your account name, or what is your email or phone number. You will notice that the customer account number, the name of customer, email and phone number used to what? To retrieve the customer record. Sometimes they don't use a gender to retrieve the record. It means you don't need to use gender for what? For indexing a table. And sometimes they don't use the address. Do you get it now? So if you are going to index supplier table, some of the column we need to consider is going to be what? Supplier ID, supplier name, email and what? And the phone what? Number, if you are retrieving that what? Records. Just a second. What's consuming my data? Okay, video to upload. Okay. So to now index this particular supplier table, the most commonly used column that will be need for the index is the four we just mention now. And that's why that here they said that anytime you are going to apply the index to the table, anytime you are going to apply the index to speed up the data access of the table, you must use a column that you use frequently in the where clause or having clause. Because know that where clause is where you specify a condition that I want to retrieve all the record the account number is in or customer number is in. I want to retrieve the record for all the customer that have this particular so name or so email. Now, an index is an internal table structure that used to provide the quick access to the record of the table based on the value of the of the index column. Now, if you are now going to apply the index, there are different type of index that already supported in MySQL. The first one we call it a primary key. The primary key index require that column on which it is defined must contain the unique value. I think we have heard about the primary key before when we talk about the key. So when you create a primary key, it means you're already creating an index on the column. Do you get it now? So the last time when we learned about creating a primary key, that means this primary key we created is already create an index because primary key too is what? Is an index. That's why that we use a primary key column to retrieve for the record frequently. Okay, so as I'm saying that the different type of index we have start from the primary key, and that's the index that require the column must not contain a duplicate value. Once you create an primary key index, it means all the value is going to be unique, no unique value in the in that column. So When we create a primary key the last time, that's a way of creating a primary key index, because you are creating a primary key index follow it. The second index type is what we call a foreign key index. A foreign key index is the one that define for referencing another table. When you want to implement the relationship between the two different table, that is when we create a foreign key index. So another type of the index we have is what we call unique index. Unique index is making sure that all the column contain duplicate values. What is happening now? Okay. Okay. I hope it's better now. So the third one I call it unique index. Internet connections table. Is unique index. So unique index contain the unique value. But one thing about unique index is that just like a primary key too, unique index can allow a null value to be in the column you use for the index, while the primary key did not allow the null value. While the third one is what you call a regular index. Regular index is defined on the column that can contain the duplicate value. There are some time I'll be using some column to search for the record in my database table, and at the same time those column can still have a duplicate value. Hello? You can't see my screen? Good evening. Okay, sorry. That network is. Can you see it now? Can you see my screen now? It's still loading. Okay. Wow. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see it now? Okay, thank you. It's the network. So the regular index, I say these are the index we create on any column that can contain a duplicate value. God. Okay. Mbese pause mba ukwu pause. Kwanje data mi lọ ni. Okay. So like I said there before that the regular index can be created on a column that can contain a duplicate values, while the full text index is designed on a column that can accept the string value to improve the speed of the shares made on this particular string. If you look at the table we want to work on for the index today now, you notice that is supplier ID, first name. Supplier ID is all the value in supplier ID is unique. All the value we have in the email is unique. All the value we have in phone number is unique. But since you say that I want to create an index on the name, first name, there is probability that we can have two people bearing the same name. So if that is the case, it means the type of index we can create on a name is going to be what we call a regular index, simply because regular index allow the duplicate value. You can't create a unique index on the name simply because there are probability that what two people can bear the same word, the same name. Do you get it now? So that is why that what this index we have to assign it to appropriate what column. Now, how do we now create the what the index? There are two ways we can create an index. Index can be created when you are creating a new table. One index can be also be creating on existing what table. Now we already have some table that what we already what created like this supplier table. So we are going to see how we can apply the index to this supplier table. But let's assume that we want to create a table for the first time and we want the table to have an index. So we are going to look at how to create index on a new table. To create the index on a new table, so mysql allow you to create index on a new table. So mysql allow you to create all five type of index on a column of a table during the creation. That is, I can create a primary key index, I can create unique index, I can create foreign key index, I can create full text index, I can create regular index on a new tables. Just to create a index on a table, like example regular index now, I will just say create table command index. After you say index, you specify the column you want to index, that is the column name. You also specify the index name. What index do you want to give to your table? For example now, the instruction is going to look like when you say create table, you specify all the column you are going to have in a table. And the last instruction is now going to be what? The index you want to create on that particular table. Now, let's look at this example here now. So, example here show we are creating an index on the food menu. And that's why I say because we are creating index on the table called food menu. They are creating a new table now, food menu now, and this table contain the following information. So let me look for another table we can create on this our supplier now, because we say that we can have as many table as possible on this our database here. So where is this database case study? Okay, I think we still have one more order. Yes, order details. We don't have table for other detail as far as this our table is concerned. So let me now see how I can create table for the other details. Now I will use some few column for the other details here now. So when I'm creating table for the other details here, I'm going to create the index on it. They get it now. So to do that again, these are the column I'm going to use. Purchase ID, that's order ID, employee ID, order date, receiving date, the item that I order for, the quantity received or quantity ordered for, and the unit price. So that is it. This column want to be something similar to to the item table 2 item column. So let me do the describe first. Describe item detail. Okay, item detail. So these are the item detail tables here now. So sorry for that. So now I want us to now create a new table. When I'm creating the table, I'm going to add index to it. So the table I'm going to create is going to be for other details, but I'm going to use few information for now from this other detail table which I want to create now. Maybe later I'll be adding the remaining one word later. My other detail table is going to contain this column. Number one, the purchase order. The purchase order here, I'm gonna make sure I make it a primary key. You get now? And I want the purchase order number to be automatically generate. You get it now? It's going to be auto generate. I don't want to enter the value for it now. So that is one. The employee order is going to be foreign key now. Remember that foreign key for employee order in our table. That means we are still going to create a table that is still going to have something like a relationship now. So that is very important. Now the order date. So the order date and receiving date, I think people can do a query on it. Do you get now? Because they may be using this order date for query frequently. So because of using it for query now, That's going to be the column we are going to what? To index. Because you see, any column they use. Ah, again? Ah, sorry. Which internet event? Disconnect halfway. Okay. So simply because we are using the order date column for the frequent what? Query. So we are going to apply what? The index to this particular what? Column. Do you get it now? I say these are the sum of the few. So receiving date again, we might need to also what? Index it too. Just like what? Like this. So the item ID is going to be what? To be foreign key, because we want to know the item we are going to make order for. So the quantity received, quantity price, unit price, this one can remain the way what they are now. Shipping status and shipping method will be done later. So now these are the column which I'm going to be using for the what, or these are the column that we are going to be using for this particular order or table. I want to rearrange this information again properly now. So that is it. So to create a new table here now, I'm going to type what? The command just the way you see it. Because remember that purpose of creating this table is simply because we want to see how to create the index on the existing table. Do you get now? Just like the one they given to us there. This is a new table, they call it food menu. These are all the column in this particular tables. And after that, they now apply the word, the index to what? To the table here. Do you get it now? So in this case now, I'm now creating my own what? New what? Table here now. So by type what we call what? Create table. Okay. After that, I'll specify the table name, which is going to be what? Order what? Detail. Okay. Now I will now say values. Sorry. I'll now specify the column I'm going to use inside this particular what? Table. The column to use inside the table here now. Start from what? Order what? ID. That's order number. I say it's going to be integer. That is one. And I want to make it a primary key. Remember, once I make this table become a primary key, automatically system create index for it. So I'll say primary what? Primary key. After that again, I want the number there to generate automatically. I will now use attribute auto generate. That means all the number I'm going to be generating here automatically. So that's the first column of the table. The second column for the other table is going to be what? Employee ID and the what? Item what? ID. Okay. So here now, I can now say what? EMP ID, and then I will say what? Integer. Second one, item what? Item ID. That is it. Remember that the same way we have used for the supplier detail again. Okay. Item ID, and that's going to be integer too. You see? That is it. Comma again. The next column I'm going to use is going to be what? Order date and receiving what? Date. Good. I'll now put order what? Date, and I'll use date column, data type. Okay. Remember, I'm going to index this particular column, but now I'll say comma. I'll say receiving date or receive date again. So the data type is still going to be date. Okay, I'm still going to index that again. And just like if you look at the one we are following here now, before they can apply the word, the index to the word, food item rate, they just specify the food item rate here now. So that's why I'm also specifying the column I'm going to index, order date and receiving date. So in addition to that, we now have a quantity order and quantity received and unit price. So here now I'm going to have for QTY order, and that will be what? Integer. Okay. And QTY receive. Okay. QTY receive. Okay. And that's going to also be what? Integer. And the unit price, that's going to be what? or unit price now we make it what? Float or decimal. Let's say decimal. Value might be more. You get it now. That's unit price decimal. And finally, the last column here is okay. That is it now. Unit price is the last column. We'll be added this one later. This one going to be what? To be added later. Okay. So that is it. So now we have a unit price making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 column. Good. So here now is our 8 column. So after the last column, which is a what? Unit price, I put comma here again. That is when I will now specify the what? The index. By say that what? Index, I will specify the index name. After that, I will now specify the column which I want to index. I want to index on 2 column, but I can first index on the first column. Later, I will now update the table to index on the second column. That's how I want to do it now. So returning backward here now, I will now specify what the index I'm going to use now by say index. When I say index keyword, I will now specify the name I'm giving to this index. I will call it what? Order detail. Order detail underscore what? Index. That means this index name going to be index for order what? Detail. After that again, I will also specify what? The column I want to index. The column I want to index. So the column I'm indexing here is going to be what? Order date. You get it now? And I close the bracket here and I close this first bracket I define. I'll now use the engine for my data by say engine equal what? INODB. So this mark the what? The statement I can use to create a new table and index with that table. So let me see how whether it will work here now. Yeah, we have an error. Auto generate, near auto generate. That's the first instruction. When I say order ID int primary key auto generate. So where is that one giving us error? Where is that one giving us error? Okay, let me make a reference to our first table here now, where we use auto generate here now. So why auto generate error here? Okay, so this is it. ID not no. Oh, sorry, auto increment. That is the name. Instead of auto increment, I say auto generate. So pardon my error. So I can correct it again by now return back to home to the statement and correct it to auto increment instead of auto generate. It will be auto increment. I think that is it now. So that error is generated. Let's see if there's going to be any other error again. I press enter key here. Okay, very good. Finally, our table has been created with the index now. Our table has been created with the what? Index. So let me now describe this table to see. Describe the table called order details and enter key. Can you see now? You can see the extra column auto increment we had to it. You can see there's a primary key to it again. And this MUL mean what? I already applied the index to this particular what? Table. That is it. You get it now? So this is how we create this particular what? Table. Remember the purpose of the index is what? Anytime I'm going to search for the record inside this particular order detail table, the two columns I can use to search for the record that the record will return very fast is going to be what? Order ID and the order date. Simply because both of them have an index. Two index are created automatically is what? Is the primary key index and the what? Order index. Do you get it now? So we'll be checking all the index available on this one here now. Like for example now, we can also add the index to what? To the table. So we can also create another type of index called full text what? Index. Do you get it now? And to create a full text index, we are going to specify index, the name of the index, and the column, and say full text word index. That means two index can be created at the same time on the table. The first one here is a regular word index, while the second one here is a full text word index. Are you getting it now? So that is how we can create a full text index on a column. And apart from that again, what about if you want to create index on the existing table? There are two statements we can use to create index on existing table. The first one is alter table, second is create index. Do you get it now? So we are going to use one of these particular statement now to add the index to to the other detail, because remember we say our other detail is going to contain two index, but for now we only create a one index. So before we go further to that one again, I want to say this particular video in order not to be too long for us to upload online now. So, and here now